As per Tamanaha, the rule of law is wherein the government officials and citizens are bound by and abide by the law that is publicly promulgated. Its principle implies that no one is above the law, so it must be applied equally. To further elucidate, the rule of law necessitates enacted laws to be objective, clear, just, and efficient. Moreover, it is pivotal that laws are publicized for the people to know and understand what they must or cannot do. It also holds the violators accountable for disobeying laws, regardless of their position in the government or any institution. Lastly, it hinders despotic occurrences in a state through the boundaries and separation of powers established through it. All indicate that the rule of law protects the rights of the people and promotes fairness in society. Judicial review is the power given to the judicial branch to have a solemn and sacred obligation to settle actual controversies that involve the jurisdiction of other branches of the government. It promotes the rule of law because it provides a role for the judicial branch to follow the objectivity of laws in interpreting and applying them, which helps to ensure and safeguard the checks and balances in all departments. It is a way to determine the unconstitutionality of laws enacted by the legislative branch or the tyrannical actions of the executive branch and hold them accountable for not adhering to the Constitution emanated from the rule of law. Thus, the judicial review advocates the rule of law because it maintains coordination of all branches of the government, securing the rights and welfare of the citizens in a state. Again, it is the rule of law and not the rule of man that prevails through it. For Justice Scalia, the living constitution follows the rule of man and not the rule of law. It has a subjective aspect that enables the rule of unelected judges to prevail in this concept, promoting judicial despotism. It implies that judges have this judicial personalization of the law. They use their own philosophical preferences to interpret the Constitution, making it a self-amending instrument that allows the application of the present meanings and values in society to address legal controversies. The evolutionary process of it to provide the needs of society ignores the purpose of judicial review, which allows the judges only to apply laws and not write or amend them. Hence, the living constitution is incompatible with the rule of law because it permits the members of the court to act beyond their jurisdiction and disregards the legal amendment processes. This disobedience to the Constitution does not follow the principle of rule of law that no one is superior to the law. In the retributive theory of punishment, violators are punished because they deserve it and not because it will promote the greatest happiness of the majority. The retributivists argue that the punishment of the offenders is justifiable by moral blameworthiness. It requires understanding their motives to do such violating acts, including their childhood life, self-issues, family situations, and all other factors that could justify whether they deserve sanctions or not. It reveals its subjective aspect in determining the moral blameworthiness of the wrongdoer, which is difficult or sometimes impossible to do. There is no clarity in the parameters to punish the violators because they base its application on the motives of the offender and not on the existing rule that prohibits the actions they committed. Thus, the retributive theory of punishment is incompatible with the rule of law because the rules are not clearly demarcated or objectively interpreted and applied. Its inconsistent rule application disregards the imperatives of the rule of law that all must be bound and abide by the law regardless of our life situation. Jerome Frank believes that laws must be uncertain, varied, vague, viable, and pliable because they must deal even with the most complicated situations and innovations in our lives. On the other hand, Frank describes the rule of law as inflexible because it settles things with its universal nature that requires objective and equal application of legal rules to everyone. It has a concept of government of laws and not of men, which he deemed idealistic because it implies that justice must be uniform and unswerving despite the varied situations and constant changes in society. Frank thus believes that the rule of law promotes pre-established rules administered without novelty and adaptability that all citizens and government officials must adhere to and are generally applied. It hinders judges to individualize responses to unique controversies of man for justice to prevail by avoiding allowances in applying it. They fear doing such action because it would be a violation of the rule of law. Its certainty makes legal rules predictable, hence rule of law is a myth for Frank.